All right, we're going live, 8 o'clock. Hi, everybody. This is Rita Townsend and Dr. Deborah Viglione coming to you live tonight on both Zoom and live Facebook. So I would like to ask everyone, in case you're not muted or in case your video is playing, to please take care of both of those and get rid of them. That we're going to be posting this on YouTube. So I want to welcome everybody on tonight. And I'm going to ask Dr. Viglione to start her slides while I do the introduction. I want to let you know that the information that you're hearing tonight is a result of a lot of research and a lot of things going on in our world today. For those of you that are joining us for the very first time, Dr. Viglione and I both have a real passion to share information, current information, important information about health and wellness. We are both involved in a global health and wellness company, and that's how we first met. We are very different in our backgrounds, and we are very different in where we are in our lives today, but we share a passion for sharing this information with all of you. Our first presentation was just kind of get to know us and our backgrounds and how we arrived at this point. Our second presentation was nutritional health and COVID-19, and it was a massive response to that. So in light of that, Dr. Viglione has spent a lot of time carrying some of that research forward, which she's going to share tonight. Dr. Viglione has had 30 years of medical practice. She is double board certified in regenerative medicine and internal medicine, and the Academy of Anti-Aging, and she serves on a science advisory board for a global health and wellness company. And her years of research and practice have led her to the information that she's sharing tonight. So I'm going to turn our presentation over to Dr. Viglione.
Hey, everybody. Is this our future? Can you hear me? Anyway, I was down in Boca Raton today, and I'm currently in Orlando, but in Boca, you can't go out without a mask on. So that was quite interesting. It's a different world down here than where we are, because that's a city. And of course, South Florida has had more problems than we have. So I feel like we have a lot more freedom up in Northwest Florida. So I think, we're living in very uncertain times right now. We don't really know what our future is. And I think that we have the opportunity to define our future. But I called this Wake Up America, because things are not going to go back to the way they used to be. This has been a big change, and we can make our future good, or we can let our future happen to us. So we need to take action. Okay, so this is basically the type of world that I grew up with. Medicine, Western medicine, is taking care of sick people. There was next to nothing in my school about preventative or well care. Our whole system is structured basically to take care of the sick. And these two top pictures are not where I want to end up in my at the golden years, supposedly, of my life. My daughter's trying to fix my hair. I'm sorry, I went running right before this. Okay, so in the bottom right, this is kind of where we're living now. Okay, this was really interesting. I found an old book when I was cleaning. I suppose you guys have all been cleaning too. And it was a book on homeopathy by Samuel Hahnemann, who's known as the father of homeopathy. And in the early introductory chapters, he's talking about allopathic medicine being the old-fashioned medicine, because in his time, he was moving away from the accepted treatment, which he called allopathic medicine, because they were bloodletting people. They felt that all the problems with disease was too much blood, and he was going in a more scientific way. Now, the science he ended up doing is homeopathy, which is funny because now it's not considered mainstream medicine. But what made me realize that basically allopathic medicine is defined by the culture at the time. So we consider it scientific medicine, but it's based on what the science is at the time, because back in his day, they thought there was too much blood in the body. So today we are dealing with allopathic medicine being defined by Big Pharma, surgery, and the FDA. So the FDA, if you don't know this, only approves pharmaceutical drugs and surgical devices that do not regulate the nutritional industry or nutritional supplements. They regulate the manufacturing, but they don't approve nutritional supplements. So what is considered allopathic is basically defined by what the FDA accepts. And that's supposedly supposed to be by scientific studies, but a good amount of the studies are done by pharmaceutical companies. So this kind of gives you an idea how much we're spending in dollars for healthcare and how much we're spending on prescription drugs, which is huge. We are one of the biggest countries for prescription drug use. This shows you the FDA budget. Human drugs is clearly the biggest part of it. And I'm not sure what they mean by biologics outside of human drugs there. You can see that toxicology research, unfortunately, is a very, very small part of this. Tobacco heads up a huge part of it. Now, this is the part that bothers me tremendously. 55% of the FDA budget comes from our government. The other 45% comes from industry user fees, which, as you saw, the biggest chunk of that is the pharmaceutical industry. And what they have said is, since they passed this act, I can't see what year exactly that was, in 1992, that the approval of drugs has been expedited. Well, that makes sense. They're paying the FDA to get their drug approved faster. So you got to see there's a conflict of interest there. It's inherent in the whole structure. And also, given that the government is funding 55% and Big Pharma is a big part of funding election campaigns and putting people in office. So we have a real problem, I'd say, with defining what is the standard of care, what is considered scientific medicine or evidence-based medicine when it is coupled up with the pharmaceutical industry and the FDA and profit-making companies. So these are the leading causes of death. It's 2017 because they haven't updated that. Heart disease still remains number one. Cancer is a close second. Then accidents. But you can see influenza, that's a popular subject right now, is in that top 10. Okay, now these are telling about the top selling pharmaceutical drugs by number. Vicodin, or it's a morphine derivative, is still number one. And you know, we've had the opioid crisis, which I won't get into much tonight, but that was basically started by a pharmaceutical. It was a profit-driven initiative that this particular OxyContin did not cause addiction, and that started the whole huge opioid crisis that we're still dealing with. Simvastatin is used to lower cholesterol. Lisinopril is used to lower blood pressure. Levothyroxine was the number one drug for years. It's for thyroid. So that tells you, as we'll get into it later, that a lot of people have problems with their thyroid, myself included. Azithromycin, interesting, that's an antibiotic. Everybody wants a Z-Pak at the first sign of a sniffle, even though most of that's viral, but everybody wants a Z-Pak. Metformin is for diabetes, Lipitor is for cholesterol, and amlodipine is for hypertension or high blood pressure. So out of that, that's the numbers, but of the most money spent on pharmaceutical drugs are on biologics. 8 out of 10 are biologics, and those are used largely for autoimmune disease, and some of them have a cancer indication. The number one revenue generating drug in America is Humira, and that is used for autoimmune disease. 2 of the top 10 were just anticoagulants used for heart disease. So what that tells us is that people are living sick with autoimmune disease. That is a huge problem. And autoimmune disease causes a lot of symptoms: tissue damage, inflammation, destruction of the tissues. And interesting, you can see the bottom common is fatigue, joint pain, swelling, skin problems, digestive issues, recurring fevers. I have multiple patients that have fevers recurring and swollen glands. But the problem with these biologics, that they actually increase your risk of cancer, number 2 cause of death, and some of them increase the risk of heart disease, number 1 cause of death. So not only are you living with disease, these drugs are allowing you to reduce your symptoms and live, but they're increasing your risk of death of other causes. So these are common autoimmune diseases: rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, or one's inflammatory bowel disease. Most people have heard of people with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. Multiple sclerosis getting quite big. Type 1 diabetes is actually an autoimmune disease. But there's many, many, many more. One of the most common actually is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which usually causes thyroid dysfunction. But besides autoimmune disease, and basically autoimmune just means the immune system has gone haywire and it's attacking your own cells. And so you're actually more susceptible to infections because it's not functioning properly, but also it's not behaving right, so it's actually damaging your cells. So this is type 2 diabetes, and you can see the incidence of how that has increased since 1994. This shows the incidence of chemical production parallels that increase of diabetes. This is the big slide that gets me every time I look at it. The top blue line is the percent of herbicides, and you can see that that's been pretty steady. And the red line at the bottom is insecticides, and that's been steady. What the yellow line is showing is the production of glyphosate or Roundup, and you can see that that parallels the curve you just saw for diabetes. And it parallels the curve that you're seeing now for the incidence of autism. Also, the increase in the vaccine industry also parallels this curve. This shows you the increase of Alzheimer's during this time. Now, you may say, well, I don't use Roundup. You're getting it anyway. There's no way, unless you live in a bubble, that you're not getting this, because it has gotten into our groundwater. When they first manufactured it, they thought that it was inert and that it would just dissolve, but now they've realized now, and it's 15 years unaltered in our soil, so it's getting into the runoff, and so some of the organic crops now are showing traces of Roundup in it. You can actually be tested for $100 and see how much Roundup is in your body, but you can see it's coming through largely GMO foods. So high fructose corn syrup, if you start looking at labels, you're gonna see high fructose corn syrup in so many foods because it's addicting. And that's also probably some of the reason behind the huge increase in diabetes. But this is what we call the standard American diet, or SAD. And this is, Roundup is now being cited as a cause of cancer, and there's been a major settlement for that. But all you have to do is go to Walmart and look in the garden section, and you'll see shelves just full of this. I mean, it hasn't stopped sales, it hasn't stopped production. And one of the things that's interesting about, this is Wake Up America, is that Michael Taylor worked for Monsanto for 16 months and then went on to be the deputy director in the FDA for some time. And they say that that's not a conflict of interest because he's a lawyer and he can recuse himself from things. But during that time, he did pass legislation to allow smaller amounts of carcinogen in our foods, that it was actually approved if they were small enough amounts. So I have to question his integrity. This shows you leaky gut. So this is really how these toxins, besides breathing them and drinking them, they're getting into our gut. This red part at the bottom is our bloodstream, and these cute little, looks like actually surgical gloves. That is our intestine, and these are called villi, and that just increases the surface area to absorb your nutrients. These three lines, those are what they call the tight junctions, basically the glue that's supposed to hold this together. This is only one cell layer thick, and so when you have a leaky gut and this is compromised, you can see like the green little jellyfish or pathogens. The little stars are your immune cells. You've got undigested food particles. These are all getting into your bloodstream because of the gap in the tight junction. Now, this is a real slide of what's happening. Basically, the baseline's on your left, then you've got 6, 10, and 16 minutes after eating a hamburger from a corn-fed cow, and that had Roundup in it. So you can see these are nice tight junctions over here on your left, the fluorescent kind of yellow-green. 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and then 16 minutes, those gap junctions are completely blown apart. So everybody has leaky gut at some point. So what we have to do is work to make those tight junctions go back together and minimize this, which we will be talking about in one of our future episodes. We'll concentrate on gut health. So what happens is then these food particles get in there and the body starts reacting against them. And that's really how autoimmune disease starts, because the body starts reacting against its own self, and it shouldn't. So these are all the other insults that are coming at us. And you don't necessarily feel these. Think about like a glass of water. You may not feel anything here, but when it starts to flow over, that's when you come down with a disease or aging or just a symptom of feeling poorly. But we've got pollution. The EMFs are a big thing right now. I just drove to Boca Raton and the number of 5G towers was unbelievable. And it's super, super scary as to what that is going to do with us as they all go live. But we also have the radiation from our cell phones. Increased it in brain tumors has been huge since we started increasing our use of cell phones and making them stronger. So these are all of the mystery disorders that have cropped up during my tenure as a physician. None of these were even mentioned in medical textbooks at all when I trained. And I was probably 10, 15 years out of training before any of these started being mentioned at all. Now they're commonplace, and you'll see Facebook groups for people with these disorders because they're so bad. And these are basically all based on the immune system going crazy, affecting the adrenals, affecting our hormones, affecting our body's ability to respond to inflammation. And these are all causing inflammation, which causes further damage to the cell. And especially down where we live, we've had a number of hurricanes. And so now we're starting to see a ton of mold-related illnesses because this stuff can grow behind the sheetrock for years before it gets up to a toxic level. And then people start becoming very sick in these sick buildings, and they didn't know what it is unless you rip out the sheetrock. We have a lot of old military buildings and people have gotten sick. So it's pretty scary. And you'll notice that now everything, there's gluten-free this, gluten-free that, because gluten is very, I guess, kind of an insult to the intestine because the intestine's already hurting, and gluten, they've modified our wheat so that it actually is increasing the leaky gut in people and causing more problems. And this is just the latest threat. And I think it's been a good wake-up call for us because people have been talking about being strong and healthy, about their immune systems and how to make them stronger. And this just shows how quickly something can come and change our world. And so we're either going to have to be proactive or reactive. And I think America is starting to see it's time to get proactive in our health. This is talking a little bit more about 5G. One of the problems that scares me the most, besides the increase possibly in cancers and brain tumors, is the heart arrhythmias. Because if you think about 5G, it's actually a waveform, and it's a faster waveform. And so we have electricity running our body. So I'm afraid we're going to see far more heart arrhythmias, far more seizures. In fact, that has been the case as we move from 2G to 3G to 4G. And they're predicting people with weak systems and already problems with their heart and seizures are actually going to die. So it's pretty scary. And then the incidence of ADD, ADHD has greatly increased. This is what a 5G tower looks like. So you'll start noticing what they've done is they've just changed a lot of the regular cell towers to these big bars. Some of them actually have 3 levels of that. This one over here to the right is a fake palm tree with these bars. And I saw them all over Southern California last October. And I was like, what are these? Because they have their own palm trees. I'm like, why are they putting up fake palm trees and what's in them? But they're trying to hide it and make it more beautiful. So this is basically, I think, all of us sitting at our desks, and we're trying to deal with this chronic fatigue, energy loss, brain fog with stimulants, coffee, tea, energy drinks. It's a huge market. And, then we go home, and we're tired, we're stressed out, and then we don't sleep good at night. And then we just begin the cycle again the next day. So I'm going to turn it over to Rita now, who's going to kind of go into what we can do about this. And then our future episodes are going to get a lot more detailed and broken down into different areas. So are you good to pull up the slides, Rita?
I'm good to go. Thank you, Deb.
Okay.
Dr. Viglio. Thank you. All right. So thanks, Dr. Viglione, for all the good news. So it's really amazing when you put all this together, because you start to realize the environment that we're living in. And it seems like there's a lot of these things that we simply don't have control over. And I think that's been one of the biggest wake-up calls from this pandemic, from coronavirus, is that losing control, not having control, is the scariest thing facing us all. So what we want to move into are some really positive things. We're going to show you some things that you can control, things about your health that you may not be aware of, and we're going to show you in future episodes even more about what you can do proactively once you've gotten the information that Dr. Viglione shared. So we're going to talk a little bit more about being hijacked, which is what Dr. Viglione just shared, and then the other side of that, which we call biohacking. So hijacking is just what Dr. Viglione has shared. The things in our environment, the things that are around us that have really taken over our health life.
Hey, and Rita, your slides aren't up.
Oh gosh, thank you. All right.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Sorry, Deb. All right, here we go. Are we there? Deb, are we there?
No, you want me to share them and I'll just move along as you talk?
Let me get back down here and see if we can go back. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, wait. Okay, it looks like I have control, but I'm not on the screen.
Here, I'll just share it.
Okay, can you share it?
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah, you just tell me if I'm not moving fast enough. Let's see.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, wait a minute. All right, here we go. Okay, so as we look at this, and we're going to look at the other side of this, what is biohacking? So what I'm going to share with you tonight is a little bit more about the things that you can control. We want to show you how you can take control of your own biology and optimizing your genetic potential, becoming the best version of yourself. And we're going to share that going forward with a little bit more information about NUTRIGENOMICS, which is really a good thing to look forward to. Okay, so we're going to be looking at prevention versus treatment. So we're looking at photos of women. One is aging very well, looks healthy and in the gym and very toned and fit. And the other person in the slide has not aged well. So we have some choices here. We need to decide which one of these that we want to be in control of. And the difference is things that we can control, like eating well and getting exercise. So we're going to show you a little bit more about what those choices are and how you need to make those choices. Okay, so as we go ahead and look more into NUTRIGENOMICS, NUTRIGENOMICS is actually the ability that you have through diet to maximize your health. We know now from science that we have the power through nutrition to actually activate your genes, especially when it comes to the prevention or treatment of disease. And it doesn't, might be new to you, but it's not really all that new. It's a massive market. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about the specifics of how to get into that in future episodes. But for right now, I want to talk a little bit more about this steps that we can take. So when we talk about health span, we talk about health span in terms of healthy life. It's not just the number of years in your life, but it's the quality of your life. And I think it's really interesting in this age of COVID-19 pandemic that all the news, the media is telling you to be healthy in this particularly challenging time has everything to do with some basic things, movement or exercise, good nutrition, healthy nutrition, good sleep patterns, and community, which of course we know we need social distancing, but we also need social connection. And the mindfulness or the positive things in your life that you do have the power to focus on, whether that's meditation or yoga or things like that, or maybe in your spiritual life, you need that because it is part of a healthy lifestyle. And then environment, as Dr. Viglione shared, there are some things, even though they're in our environment, we can make some choices on how we deal with that. So we are moving forward looking more into this health span. So 3 elements of the health span: lifestyle, which we just looked at, which is nutrition, exercise, and the choices that you make in your everyday activities, things like sleep. Environment, there are things in the environment that we can control. Now that you have the information and you're armed with the information, then you now have the choice to make better decisions. So the last thing that we're going to look at is the genetics, and this is something that you do have control over. The first DNA mapping was presented in 1953, and in the early 90s we started looking at genome mapping, which actually mapped out our 1,800 genes. And so we found out in the intervening years that this paradigm of what your DNA controls has shifted. Originally, we were told that about 70 or 80% of our health, our future health, was controlled by genetics, and only about 20 or 30% of it was lifestyle. Today, we know that that has completely shifted, and now we can influence and activate and speak to our genes. And now we have the control over about 80% of what we look at in terms of our health span. So this is an interesting chart that exactly explains that. The intervention that we're talking about are very simple things. Their diet, their exercise, their lifestyle, and nutritional modifications, which we will talk about in future episodes. I hope you'll join us there. But as you can see from this charting, that each one of these elements that you add to your lifestyle increases your lifespan or increases your health span. So the next slide is going to look at more ways that we have an opportunity to do that. So we know that in our later years, it's more difficult to start this. The next slide will show you that in the last few years of your life, this intervention, if it's been medical intervention or if it's been pharmaceutical intervention, it really advances the continuum of aging rather than slowing it down. So I love this next chart. It really, really shows you what you have the power over. So the bottom line is the aging line. The red line is what we call drug treatment or medical intervention. And as you can see from the red line, when you start drug treatment and medical intervention, the red line starts dropping very rapidly. And I find that it's very interesting that after about 40, it drops very quickly. So if you look at the green line, that is prevention. The earlier that you begin prevention, which are the elements that we've talked about, including nutritional intervention, including supplementation that we're going to talk about in future episodes, you can see where the green line goes. So now we're talking about healthy lifespan well into your 100s. And the space between the green line and the red line is your quality of life. So the sooner you start these preventative measures, the longer the health span and the healthier the health span. So the message there, of course, is to start early, and we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, so as we will be talking a little bit more is about this whole concept of nutrigenomics. So this is simply nutrition and nutritional formulas working through the cell signal that we've talked about to turn on these genes, to actually activate the genes that can help you improve your health and extend lifespan. And there's a mountain of research on this now. If you look at what's happening in this area of study now, the science of living longer, we're looking into it with massive amounts of investment and dollars. It's estimated to be about a $600 billion market in 2025. And we are looking at how to maximize our nutrition and a biohack by using our own complex system of biology and our own genes to optimize our health. And what is just incredible about this is that we're going to do this with combinations of plants and dietary components, with which Dr. Viglione and I will share in a future episode. So tonight we wanted to just lay out a path for you. We wanted to give you an opportunity to see from Dr. Viglione's research just what is happening in our environment and some of the things that we should be aware of and that we can start taking control over. And that will lead us into more areas where we can take more control through these dietary components and using natural plant-based ingredients to do that, and really extending that health span into a longer lifespan. So I hope that the information that we've shared with you tonight has been really helpful. I appreciate Dr. Viglione's research. She always comes up with such amazing things. We are certainly open to answering questions. What you see on your screen now is our contact information. Both of us are available to answer your questions. Possibly someone else invited you on tonight, and that might be someone who can give you some good information and direct you to us. And in addition, the video that we've done tonight has been published on YouTube, and you can review it there, and maybe you'd like to share it there. So I want to thank Dr. Viglione once again for rescuing my slides. And we are going to be doing another episode where we'll dig a little deeper into this whole idea of biohacking and nutrigenomics. So thanks for joining us tonight. Be safe, take all the measures that you need to take to stay healthy, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon on another episode. Thanks, Dr. Viglione.
Right. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.